on getting the questions, and I'll let Cindy begin. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for being here. Welcome to this forum for the Novi Community Schools elections. Today is October 7th, 2024. This forum will be featuring the 3 candidates who have filed for the Novi Community School Board. There's 2 seats available for a 6-year term. The sponsor of this forum is the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. I'm Cindy Peltonen, a member of the League of Women Voters, Oakland area. I am not a resident of this district. The League of Women Voters is a trusted national, nonpartisan political organization. Our members do the hands-on work to safeguard democracy. While we never endorse a candidate, we are directly involved in shaping the important issues that keep our communities strong. As a League of Women Voters members, I have the opportunity to contribute in a leadership role such as this one, which has great impact on local, state, and even national issues. If you are interested in learning about how you too can make a similar impact, I would encourage you to visit our website at lwvoa.org. The League of Women Voters does not endorse any candidate or political party. Views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates, and the sponsors take no responsibility. The format for the forum has been established by the League of Women Voters. We ask that the audience remain silent during the forum. Please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices. The recording of this forum is copyrighted by the League of Women Voters 2024, and personal recording or pictures are not allowed. We ask that candidates answer the question with their views only and do not interrupt another candidate. The questions will be asked to all candidates and do not single out any one candidate. All candidates will be answering questions submitted by the audience and screened for duplication and appropriateness by Chris Allen and Judy Bateman. Pages Barbara Saul, Deb Ross, and Mike Allen will be circulating with paper and pencils for your questions. Please turn your questions into the pages. The format is as follows. All candidates will be given 1 minute for opening statement in alphabetical order. Closing statements will be 1 minute in reverse order. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question in rotation unless extended by the moderator. All candidates will be allowed equal time to answer questions. Our timer is Belinda Fries. The candidates for Novi Community School Board are Jamie Vandermoss Kleebert, Marianne Roney, and Tom Smith. We will begin the 1 minute opening statements with Mrs. Vandermoss Kleebert.
Hi, thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. My name is Jamie Kleebert. I am running for school board because I'm a really invested stakeholder in our community. I have 3 kids in the district in 4th grade, 6th grade, and 8th grade. I'm a lifelong resident of Novi, and I'm a very proud alumni of Novi schools. I attended Novi Woods Kindergarten right next door all the way through to the high school and graduated in the 90s. I'm also running because I'm a really supportive parent in the district. I've logged over 1,000 volunteer hours over the last 8 years helping our students and our staff, and I think that's really important. I'm also running because I'm a very responsible person. My background is in finance and consulting. I think that skill set, paired with my dedication to the district, my love of Novi, makes me a really qualified candidate for this position.
Thank you. And Ms. Roney?
Hi, I'm Marianne Roney, running for the 6-year term. And I've lived in the city for 39 years with my husband and 2 children, which they, went through Novi from preschool all the way through 12th. Thank God they've made it. And I have been on the board the last 5 years and like 10 months. I really enjoyed it, survived COVID. And I'm the treasurer, the current treasurer right now. I ran on school safety, to harden the entrances, which we had achieved. I also wanted to do something with the trades. And now we have a really robust mechatronics, I always screw that word up, at the high school. So I'm, promises made, promises kept, and I look forward to the next 6 years. We're doing some really wonderful things.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Tom Smith. I'm a current trustee on the board. I was appointed to a vacancy back in 2018, so I'm completing not only my first term, but another year before that. And I have some unfinished business here in the district that I'll be excited to complete and see come to fruition. I've lived in the district for about 30 years. All three of my children attended kindergarten through 12th grade, Deerfield, and then through the high school. My youngest just graduated last year, and I thought that maybe with him graduating, my service term would be done, but it's not. I started as president of the Novi Educational Foundation about 12 years ago, and have since founded a nonprofit group called Friends of Novi Schools with an emphasis on mental health and well-being, not only for the kids, but for the staff and for the community. As many of you might know, the building that we're sitting in tonight is going to become a wellness center. We're still a couple of years away from that, and I want to see that come to being.
Thank you. We will now begin the question segment of our forum. The first question will be answered by Ms. Roney, followed by Mr. Smith, and then Mrs. Klebert. We're in a very politically polarized time. With this, what do you see as the role of our schools to teach our students the importance of being an informed voter and to engage civically in a responsible and respectful manner? Ms. Roney.
It's a shame that we are in such a politically divided time. The kids, I don't believe, learn enough to be an informed voter. I think some of the teachings go one way or the other, and it should not be that way. I'm sorry, but I think that a lot of the politics should be left at home. I do believe they should learn about democracy, what it is. You know, you should vote, check out the candidates, but I don't believe that teachers should be sharing their views on whether we're right or we're left. They just need to learn about, you know, the program, the executive branch and stuff like that.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Well, obviously, it's a politically charged environment. We're, about a month away from a national election. I also believe that our children need to learn about how a republic works and how our country was founded, and what some of those views and opinions were back at that time, and then come to their own conclusion on which candidates support the things that are important to them and what resonates with them. I think we have an obligation as educators to teach our children to be critical thinkers, and also give them the freedom to form their own conclusions. Even on a day like today, there's different groups that are protesting across our country as we celebrate a horrific event that happened 1 year ago. So that's just the sign of the times. I think if we encourage our kids to be good stewards of their vote, which is a wonderful right here in the United States, that'll go a long way.
Thank you. And Mrs. Klebert.
Thank you. I think it's really important to educate our kids about what's going on in our world and in our country. I love that in our sixth grade classes across the district, they start the day by watching CNN 10. And it's a very nonpartisan view of what's happening in the world today. Kids don't see newspapers on their parents' breakfast tables anymore. We get a lot of news from our phones, and kids don't really have access to all of that. So I think it's really important to educate them on what's going on. I also think it's important to teach them how to think critically and make their own opinions and stand by those opinions. I have some Girl Scouts, and when you ask them their favorite color, they go, "What's your favorite color?" Okay. I love that part of our strategic plan, one of the things on our ideal profile of a graduate is teaching them how to be critical thinkers. So I think it's important to teach the kids how to think and how to form opinions for themselves and how to stand by those opinions and not be subject to a lot of other influences.
Thank you. Question number 2, we'll start with Mr. Smith. What are your thoughts about partisan politics entering our nonpartisan positions? Have you sought support from a political party for this election?
I have not, as I believe it doesn't have a place as we sit at this table as school board trustees. So that's the simple answer to that question. There are many items that have come up for us over the last 6 years, 5.5 years, that have lent themselves to being interpreted, if you believe, for example, as I did, that our children should be back, back in the school. When we were dealing with COVID, I was viewed as one thing. When I supported a different candidate to be the superintendent, I was viewed as something different. What I've done consistently since I've been at this table is made decisions which I believe are based in the best interest of our kids, that support our staff, that support our community. I don't sit here because I'm Tom Smith. I sit here because over 6,700 people voted for me in November of 2018, and I represent those people.
Thank you. Mrs. Klebert?
I also believe this, as a nonpartisan position, should not be endorsed or accept money or endorsement from a political party, so I have not done that. I also don't like being labeled one thing or the other. My values don't perfectly align with any other person's, and when I come to a board table and make a decision, it's not based on what political party I agree with. It's based on what's best for our kids, our staff, and our community.
Thank you. And Mrs. Roney?
I don't believe that, the party affiliation has anything good to do at this, board table. I always say, check your ego and your party affiliation at the door. I have been endorsed by some political, did not seek them, and I don't know why they didn't ask me, can we, whatever, it just went out. But I do not believe that politics really has anything to do here. We need to do what's best for the children. In the past, there have been some items that come up that I don't quite believe in, but it's best for the children. So I vote to support those.
Thank you. Question 3, we'll start with Mrs. Klebert. What are 2 examples of things the district needs to improve on, and on what you would do to support those?
I think our district does a lot of things really well, and we're fortunate for that. A couple things that I would do to maybe improve on our current position. I think one thing we do is we make really informed decisions. Our board gathers evidence and data, and they research topics, and they make a decision. I think what we often struggle with is checking in every 6 months, 12 months, right? We changed school start times 3 years ago, and I don't think anybody's ever asked my opinion or other parents' opinions on how's your 5th and 6th grader doing waking up at 6 a.m. We made the decision and just moved on with life. So same thing with cell phones, this new cell phone policy, our curriculum policies changed. I think it's really important to make sure we're checking in and verifying that that decision was accurate, and if it wasn't, let's shift gears. Another thing that I would love to see improved is our transportation. I think so many school districts don't realize that it's a luxury to have. It's not mandated. I think we have amazing bus drivers and staff, but I think the process in which we roll out is really stressful to a lot of parents, and I'm out of time.
Thank you. And Mrs. Roney?
Nobody does a lot of things well. And one of the things I want to see continuously improved, of course, is our attention to the details of mental health. Their teenage suicide rates have skyrocketed since COVID. And it's something that, like Tom said, we are going to do a wellness, center here. It's very important for the, for our youth and actually teachers. We're going to have a little room down there for them. The second thing is school safety. We do it well, but there's always improvements. And to keep our children feeling that they can come to school and not have to worry about, oh my gosh, is there going to be a bad guy here? And so I believe that we need to continue looking at different things that work and keep our students safe.
Thank you. And Mr. Smith?
I agree with what I've heard so far. There's always room for opportunities. I've never liked the slogan, if it's not broke, don't fix it. I've preferred, if it's not perfect, can we make it a little bit better? A couple of areas that weren't mentioned are the opportunities that we can create for our kids that maybe aren't gonna graduate with a 4.3 GPA. Some of the scores of our students aren't where we want them to be. That's especially true with our kids with black-colored skin. I think there's room for improvement for some of the kids that maybe aren't looking to go to college for a four-year degree. Someone like my son that was saved by the Scavos family, learned how to build things and work with his hands. I also think an area that I'd like to see improve is the retention of our staff and our teachers. We have great people that are with our kids every day. It just breaks my heart when I sit at this table and hear about all the resignations and people that are leaving. So there's lots of things that we can do to make ourselves even better, but those are a couple that come to mind.
Thank you. A perfect segue for our next question, which will be answered by Mrs. Roney first. How can we help minority students achieve success at Novi schools? Mrs. Roney?
Yeah, I was
Okay.
just writing it down,
That's
sorry.
fine, sure.
We do a lot for the kids. I mean, we spent, $750,000 on tutoring just for those students. But we treat every child individually, which, everybody has a different learning style. So we're working on that. We just did, we implemented, beginning of this year, a K-4 literacy program that should really improve everybody's score, not just, our top performing students. We've done a lot of things. There's a lot of things more we can do. I actually left our curriculum meeting early to come here to find out more of, the gap. Is it improving? Is it not? It looks like it's staying the same. And we keep trying to do all kinds of different things. We're hiring more teachers, more diverse teachers. And we're still not getting the results we want. So we're going to continue to try.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Well, the issue that I have with your question is the broad use of the word minority students. Caucasian kids in this district are the minority of students. There's only about a third of the kids that have the color of skin that I do. The majority of our students are Asian, Indian, and Japanese. Their test scores are off the charts. The challenge that we have in our district is with two different groups. One are the lower kids on the socioeconomic scale, which is a completely different problem than the issue that we have with kids with black skin. Part of the problem is just with our teachers. When over 8 out of 10 teachers look like my daughters, it's difficult for some of the children in our district to feel safe in the classroom. If you don't feel safe in the classroom, you're not going to do well. So, like Mary Ann said, we're continuing to scour the historically black colleges and universities looking for teachers. We're trying to do things, but it's not a problem unique to Novi. It's a problem nationally.
Thank you. And Mrs. Kleber?
Yeah, I agree a lot with a lot of things Tom said. I think to help minorities achieve success, you have to make sure that they're seen, they're valued, they're heard, they're supported. When kids feel valued at school, they try harder. Statistically, it's shown that black students perform better when they have a black teacher. That's not to say we should go hire a teacher based on their skin color, but there's other ways to incorporate minority children in our schools. You can make sure that you have inclusive reading materials that maybe use some of the names that their culture uses. You can bring in speakers that maybe are from their same skin color. When they see leaders in their district, they feel more valued, they feel more heard, and I think you can perform better as a student that way. I don't think this is a Novi issue. I think it's a systemic issue across our country, but I think Novi is such a leader in academics and a leader in our state that we should be a leader in this as well.
Thank you. Question 5, we'll start with Mr. Smith. The increase of gun violence in schools is of grave concern. What specific district policies and school-wide practices should be in place to address school safety?
Well, as a school district, we've made tremendous strides in improving the physical safety of our children. As was mentioned by Mary Ann, the hardening of our entrances, the fact that we have resource officers. If any of you have met Dennis, I mean, just just spending 15 minutes with him, I think would bring you some peace of mind that we're moving in a direction to provide a safer district for all of our kids. I see the president of our board is in the room now, and I won't ask for your number, Paul, but I think we're up to around $5 million that we've spent on safety measures for the kids in this district. There's no other district that's done the things that we've already done to help our kids be safe. But safety is not just physical safety, it's mental safety. It's helping our kids not hurt themselves. I mean, that's frankly just as big of a problem, whether a kid's cutting, not eating right, or attempting to hurt themselves. That's just as real as the physical violence. So we need to step it up a little bit, and we are.
Thank you. Mrs. Klebert?
I think with respect to gun violence and any type of physical safety at the school, the best step forward for the board is to seek the advice of an expert in that field. I'm not familiar with anybody on our existing board that is an expert in that matter, and I think we have great resources in our district. We've recently hired a full-time security expert. We have great relationships with our Novi Police Department. We have Novi alumni, that's the assistant police chief. We have Detective Warren in our schools. I think any decision that's made with respect to gun violence in the schools should be made in conjunction with our school safety experts, not single-handedly by the board.
Thank you. Mrs. Roney?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. The increase of gun violence in schools is of grave concern. What specific district policies and school-wide practices should be in place to address school safety?
Okay, thank you. We have recently, well, last year, we started this program, it's called Raptor. So everybody that comes to the building gets their license scanned, so we know who's in the building. That's one of our things. We also put locks on all of our doors, the inside doors, that in case of a thing, we get to lock it quickly. But we have also, like I said, hired Dennis, our security officer. We also work very closely with the Novi Police Department. We have resource officers in our high school, and I believe they go around to other buildings as well. And we've hardened all our entrances. That makes it where the child hopefully will feel a little bit more safe with all of these procedures we've put in place. But as Tom said, the child has to feel safe and secure.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mrs. Klebert. Should parents be held accountable for their children's actions?
I don't think I can give a blanket answer to that because I think two things. Actions could be good or actions can be bad. I think in terms of negative actions, that should be dealt with on a one-off case. I think there's instances where if a parent is buying a minor a gun and that gun is used for something, then that parent should be held accountable for that. On the flip side, though, I think parents should also be held accountable for some of the success and achievements of their children. I love that in some of our buildings now, when your child is seen doing something positive, or not just getting a good test score, but doing something to help their fellow classmates, a lot of times they call the parent and let us know now. And you kind of panic when you see a school number come across your phone going, oh my gosh, who got sick, or who's in trouble, or what's happening, and then to have an administrator commend your student, I think, like, I get choked up on it, I think it's wonderful.
Thank you. Mrs. Roney?
Really broad question, as Jamie said. I mean, should parents be held accountable? Should they be held accountable for their sports performance? I mean, that's really broad. I think though the point whoever did the question was trying to get at was, in the case of the Oxford shooter, should those parents be held accountable for their son's actions and their inaction because they knew their son had a problem and they didn't do anything? I had mixed emotions on that, but I've come to see that, you know what, it's probably a good thing because you can get gun locks free at the police department. There's, when you purchase a gun, it usually comes with a trigger lock. I mean, it's, for you not to do stuff like that, I mean, it's really, you're just asking for trouble. And I believe that, yes, in a case like that, you should be held accountable.
Thank you. And Mr. Smith?
As has already been stated, the question's frankly too broad to really warrant a specific answer. My opinion on whether a parent should be held responsible for their child's actions is really moot. I try to follow the law. I think that's my responsibility as a board trustee, is to keep our district safe. I'm more interested in the role that may be perceived or real that the school board or the administration had specifically in what happened at Oxford. It's a little above my pay grade to pretend that I'm an attorney or a judge and interpret the local and civil statutes with regards to purchasing a gun and what that child does with it. I have a child with ADHD, and he struggles with impulse control, and that's not abnormal. And sometimes he'll behave in a way that even he'll regret almost immediately. So if we were all more responsible for all of our actions, I think the world would be a better place.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mrs. Roney. How does your involvement in the community prepare you to be a good school board candidate?
I go out and I listen to people. I talk to people about, their issues. I also do a lot of education. MASB offers a lot of educational classes, and you meet a lot of other board members there, and you can get a lot of information of what they're doing in their district, and you bring it back to our district. Sometimes it's a great idea, and other times, the rest of the board looks at me like, you want to do what? So listening, talking to the community, attending events, but also I think communicating with other school boards in the Oakland County area really helps.
Thank you. And Mr. Smith?
Well, I think being involved in the community is a good first step. Listening, making yourself available, putting yourself out there. As a business owner in this community for the past 30 years and an active member, I know I'm not the only one at St. James Catholic Church right down the road, we have an opportunity to listen. And it's not uncommon for me to get approached after lecturing at Mass one Saturday or Sunday. Hey, you're this guy, or you do this, or you get that, or it could happen at Kroger. So I think you need to be available and you need to listen. I also think it is important to talk to other people that are doing similar work. I've maintained a relationship with the superintendent to the district just south of us. And it goes back to even my family. My aunt was the assistant superintendent responsible for education in the Grosse Pointe School District. So I talk to people over on that side of the community. So it's important to listen, it's important to be available, and it's important to keep an open mind.
Thank you. And Mrs. Klebert?
I think my involvement in the community has prepared me very well to be a good board member. I've been on a PTO board at the elementary schools for the last 9 years. I created the nonprofit that supports now Orchard Hills as its PTO. I manage all the finances for that and a couple other organizations in the community. I've also started 2 Girl Scout troops for current 4th graders and 8th graders, and I'm happy to say some of them are here today. But I think all of that shows how committed I am to our students and our teachers. I think it's really important to grow student leaders and to support really all the kids in our district. I also make a point to be at other events in our community. I could tell you when band fanfare is, and I don't have a child in band, or when the next middle school theater program is. And I always try to find reasons to attend those things. I make Girl Scout outings at some of our community events because I do think it's important for our kids and myself to be involved in the community.
Thank you. We'll begin the next question with Mr. Smith. Please give an example of an instance when you have been in the minority opinion on an issue, either school board, work, volunteer position, etc., and spoke up on your position.
Sure, I've been recorded sitting at this table as the single board member asking for our kids to go back into school when we were dealing with the COVID epidemic. At the time, I didn't know if I was right or wrong, but my gut told me that the kids needed to be in school. My kids told me that they needed to be in school. The science told me that the kids would be okay in school, and most likely the teachers would be as well. At one point, there was another board member that joined me, and then it was 2 people. But that was a very difficult time. You know, I've been very vocal at this table that I had death threats put in my mailbox. I had people on our staff that told me I didn't care about them, which was really odd because I did and I do. So that's a very vocal time when, and I think in hindsight, not one person's come up to me and said, hey, you know what, Mr. Smith, you might have been more right on that one than we were. But what I do know is our 3rd and 4th graders are struggling because they miss kindergarten and 1st grade.
Thank you. Mrs. Klebert.
In terms of being a minority opinion on something or being against the masses, I find a lot of pride in making sure I can come to a consensus with my constituents. I don't thrive on confrontation, so I do try to be a team player and build a consensus amongst the group. As an example, and I don't want to use specific names or anything like that, but in my child's elementary school, we had a change in administration, and it created some unhealthy habits in our school. We had an environment where we had teachers talking negatively about each other behind each other's backs, talking about the administration, saying things to kids about the administration that maybe isn't healthy. And I feel like I really put myself out on the line there and coming to speak with our administration and our superintendent and giving data-based evidence of some of the things that were happening. We lost 30% of our staff that year in the school. And I really put myself out there going to bat for our educators and our students because I think a really unhealthy environment had transpired in our school.
Thank you. And Mrs. Roney?
There's been a couple of times that I've not agreed with our fellow board members, but I also spent countless volunteer hours on the athletic boosters. Did secretary, did treasurer there as well. And there were a few times, the weight room was one of them, that I did not agree with the other people, and there was a lot of people voting on it, so I wasn't the only one. But, you know, I like Jamie. I like to listen to the other people, get their opinion, and then sometimes you learn and you can change yours. So that's the big thing that I like to do, is not hard feet in the sand, you know, I'm not gonna do this, so.
Thank you. The next question will begin with Mrs. Klebert. What do you think about the current state of our students' mental health? How do you envision supporting our students in that regard?
I think mental health is really important. It's a child's physical, emotional well-being. If they're not of sound body and mind, you can't learn. We need to make sure that we do place some emphasis on mental health because you can't cover the curriculum and the academics if that child's not in a healthy place to learn. I think what the district is doing with this building and what it has the potential to become is kind of state of the art. There's no other district like it. We can't go to some other school in Michigan and say, let's copy this, because it doesn't exist. So I think we are on the forefront of supporting our students mentally. I think it's unfortunate that the state took away some of the funding for our mental health and our security, because I do think it's important to make sure all of our students are healthy.
Thank you. Mrs. Roney?
One thing that I'm proud that the board agreed to and our superintendent came up with was the new cell phone policy. The kids are more engaged. You look at, we just had a Curiosity podcast come out, and it was 2 students talking about how they're more engaged. They find it, you know, less distracting. They can be in a classroom and they actually talk to each other. And I think that's part of mental health, because once you get to know the person sitting across the aisle, then it's not, you know, your anxiety's less. but we have a long way to go. Mental health is so very important. This building won't be ready for 2 years, but I think is a great, you know, progress towards it. And so I just think we need to keep improving on mental health.
Thank you. And Mr. Smith?
Well, it's no secret to anybody in the community that I'm passionate about mental health. As a parent of a child that struggled with that still currently does, that takes medications, that cut and had problems eating, that had a child in my home this very afternoon who attempted to hurt himself in a neighboring district. It's real, whether you believe it or not. We have some high-performing students in our district that struggle with anxiety and pressure and stress, but culturally, it's not acceptable to talk about that in their homes. So we have some kids that don't even feel safe talking about these things in their own homes, which is another reason why the Wellness Center is so important. I co-founded the Friends of Novi Schools with Jason Smith, another local resident and parent, and we're raising money and funds, and I'm thrilled to say that we kicked off our foundation by having a bunch of kids from the high school attend the movie Dear Evan Hansen, which if you still haven't seen it, I'd encourage you to see that. It can really impact your life.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mrs. Roney. What role do you think parents should play in curriculum decisions?
The teachers know best, but I do believe that the parents, you know, like books, okay? You know, the parents should look at the reading list and decide, you know, I want my child to read X, Y, or Z, and not, you know, go at the teacher and say, why would you do that? Because there's always choices. You know, these teachers went to college and everything to learn, you know, how to teach. And so while the parents, we can ask for their input, but a lot of it needs to be left up to, I would say, the professionals. You know, we have a wonderful curriculum, Michael Geremini, and, you know, but reach out, talk to people if you have something that really bothers you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, of course, I believe that all of our parents have certain rights and opinions that they're free to express, but I do believe that it's up to someone like a Mike Geremini, who's our assistant superintendent responsible for curriculum, who's responsible along with Dr. Carino in training our staff and developing our staff and how to reach these children effectively. I would encourage and challenge anyone in the district to sit with Mr. Geremini for 15 or 30 minutes. You'll walk away from that meeting with, I believe, the full confidence that this man is truly capable of the job that he's been entrusted to do. And that's the type of talent that we attract to Novi. So if we want to hold ourselves out as the #1 school district in the state of Michigan, and we want to recruit the best talent and the best staff and the best teachers and the best cabinet and the best administrators, then for goodness sake, let's let them do their job.
Thank you. And Mrs. Kleebert?
I think it's really important for a parent to be involved in their child's education. I think it's common sense, but it's actually statistically shown that parents who volunteer in their kids' schools, their kids perform better. So I do think it's really important for parents to be involved. I think it's not necessary for parents to create or control our curriculum. I think we have great resources in place to do that. Mr. Geremini, his staff, and our teachers, that's what they're here to do. A lot of our curriculum is state mandated as well, but I respect the fact that our district has policies in place where if a parent disagrees with something, a book, a lesson, that they have the opportunity to voice that concern. And I think it's important for that parent to be involved in their child's education and their well-being for that.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Smith. Please explain your position on book banning and the board's role in deciding educational material.
I don't support book banning. The board's role is to supervise the superintendent. We have one employee, Superintendent Ben Micah. It's Ben's responsibility to employ his cabinet, which includes people like Mike Giramini. That's how we operate. If you want to ask me the names of 3 or 4 tech funds or tech companies that I think would be a good investment for the next 3 to 6 months, I'd be happy to throw a few out at you. That's what I do for a living, 60 to 70 hours a week. I don't know of anyone on our board that's got their master's degree in education. So I think our media specialists are much more equipped at deciding which books should be in our library. We have some of the best professionals in the country, definitely in the state. If a parent has a question or an objection, fine, voice it. Opt your kid out of a lesson, opt your kid out of reading a book. But let's let our professionals do their job.
Thank you. Mrs. Klebert.
Yeah, I agree with most of what Tom said. I don't support book banning. I think our job as a board is to support the superintendent and the people he hire. And I think we hire very educated staff whose job it is to pick out those books. I think we're fortunate that in Novi this really hasn't been an issue. I think in the last 5 or 10 years, we've had one form submitted that challenged a book that was in our library. And again, I respect the fact that our district does have that policy where if a parent doesn't agree with something, that they have the opportunity to exclude their child from that. I think a lot of times too, we think of book banning as something really polarizing, but sometimes it's just a subject matter that's sensitive to their family, whether it be adoption or the loss of a parent. Sometimes it's not always something polarizing, it's just sensitive to their family. That book doesn't need to be banned, but I think it's great that our teachers provide other options for those examples.
Thank you. And question 12, we'll start with you. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Roney. I marked
come
you
on.
off and you didn't even have a chance. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I do agree with Tom and Jamie that no books should be banned. We do have a form that parents can fill out if they don't feel it's inappropriate. Sometimes maybe it shouldn't be in the 4th grade house and it should be in the 5th grade or the 6th or the 8th or whatever. We have a form for that. And I mean, there's no bad book. I mean, so, you know, some people would say that, you know, the Shades of Grey should never have been read. And some people really enjoyed it. When I walked through the airport when it came out, everybody was reading it. You know, so no book should ever be banned. It may need to be moved, but we do have a procedure for that, and that's what we're gonna do.
Thank you. Now, the next question will begin with Mrs. Kleber. Why do you think you'd make a better candidate than the other people running?
Well, with all due respect to both of you, I take a lot of pride in the fact that I've become friends with both of you, and I think it's very admirable that you guys have given of your time over the last 6 years and that you're willing to do it even more. I do think it's healthy to have turnover in a board. I think especially when the terms are 6 years, new people have new energy and new ideas. I myself have been on a board for the last 9 years, and I can admit that your energy level and your passion is just, it's not the same. And I think it's really healthy, especially in volunteer positions, to have turnover in those positions. I think also one of my strongest character traits is I go all in when I'm committed to something. You can ask my kids' sports teams or my Girl Scout parents or my PTO friends. I don't really go halfway on things. So I think as a school board member, I can guarantee you that I will overcommit myself to doing a great job.
Thank you. And Mrs. Roney?
I have a proven record. You know, in the last 6 years, we've done some wonderful things in this district. We have plans for other ones. Tom and Jamie, I think, are both good candidates. I've done a lot of volunteering, but I feel I've taken a lot of education classes that has made me a better board member. The MASB offers all kinds of classes, teaches you how to be a board member, what things to look for, different things to try. And so I've been educated on that with other board members. but I don't think you can go wrong, you know, with any of us. It's just, we have a little board right now that I think is working very well together. And I think we've got a lot of plans that the community will very much enjoy.
Thank you. And Mr. Smith?
I do think we've done a lot of great things over the last 6 years, 6 or 7 years that I've served on the board. And we do have some plans that we're just really launching, depending on how the bond vote goes next year, that I'm excited about and that I'd like to see come to fruition. There was a question earlier about being an engaged community member and how you can get feedback and accept feedback. And for the years that I ran the Novi Educational Foundation before starting Friends of Novi, as many of you might guess, that's a position that really I'm out asking people for money. And when you're asking people for money, you're typically going to get their opinion, whether it's solicited or not, because they typically want to offer that when they hand you the check. And what I've heard is there's still a few things that are missing. And I love the idea of this wellness center being one of them. I think as a local business leader, I've spent time leading others to make better decisions on a more regular basis. And I look forward to doing the same here for another 6 years if I'm blessed with the reelection.
Thank you. Thank you very much. This concludes the time for questions. The candidates, unless there are any more questions, the candidates will each be given 1 minute for a closing statement in the reverse order of the opening statements. So we'll start with Mr. Smith.
Well, thank you again for your time. I think it's really cool that so many people have come on a Monday evening to listen when there's other things that we could be doing. I feel very fortunate. I've already referenced a gentleman in the room that played a role in helping me get involved in this board 7 years ago, and it's been a rewarding experience. I did not think I would run again, but I do feel that the momentum that we have currently under our wings is positive, and it's good, and it's great that we've got COVID now in the rearview mirror. We're fixing some of the problems that have come as a development of that. And I'm excited for what the future brings, especially this next 2 to 3 years as we embark on the process of the work that we want to do at the high school and the activity center, especially the theater arts program, which is in dire need of a facelift. And then, of course, it'll all culminate with the wellness center and the space that we're sitting in tonight. So I'm excited, and with your guys' votes, I'll keep moving forward.
Thank you. Mrs. Roney.
Hi, thank you guys for your time tonight. I'm glad to see you guys showed up. I was getting worried when it was like 10 to 6, there was nobody here. When I first got on the board, I was like, I don't know, because it takes a lot of time, a lot of commitment, but it's so worth it to do things when you know it's going to help a child, just even one child. It's worth it, you know. Like Tom said, our board, we work very well together. We have some great things in the pipeline. You guys have probably seen the rendering of the Wellness Center. I think that's just gonna make such a huge difference for our community. But the athletic fields over at the high school, the redoing of the high school, I think Orchard Hills is one of them that, elementary school, we're looking at, reconfiguring. I mean, it's great. There's so much stuff. We've done all the playgrounds. It's wonderful. But I feel there's more to do, and I want to be part of it.
Thank you. And Mrs. Klebert.
Just want to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this event, and also to the community and attendance. I think it's really important to be an informed voter in this day and age, and I love that there's kids in the audience. And thank you, Tom and Mary Ann. I love that we are supporting each other without negativity like a lot of the other districts. Don't get me wrong, I want to beat both of you. But I think it's actually great that this is not a packed house, because I think we all have healthy campaigns going in support of each other. To learn more about me, you can go to www.jamiefornovi.org. I've mentioned my 3 kids several times. I'm not just here to support those 3. There are 7,000 kids in our district that I'm ready to support. I'm invested, I'm supportive, I'm responsible, and I'm an educated decision maker, and I think I would be a great candidate for the board.
Thank you. The League of Women Voters would like to thank the audience, the candidates, and Novi TV for making this forum possible. For further nonpartisan information on these candidates, you may visit vote411.org. When available, the video of this forum will be on the lwvoa.org website. The video is copyrighted by the League of Women Voters and must be used in its entirety. The League of Women Voters is funded by contributions from concerned citizens and businesses. Our membership is open to men and women over the age of 16. Absentee ballots have already gone out. Remember that early voting begins October 26th, and will end on November 3rd. You can vote at your, I think that was a typo. Oh, all right. And you can vote at your precinct on November 5th. Please be sure to make sure you're registered, your friends and neighbor and family, and make this election one that everyone votes in, for democracy is not a spectator sport. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.